Starting. Howdy, I'm Matt, and good afternoon, good morning, and good evening. Welcome to this week's Mastermind. Dave, the topic for today is replacing yourself.
It is indeed. It is indeed. Now, that is often seen as like the holy grail, I think, for a lot of business owners when they start their business, or certainly to replace themselves in a lot of the many hats that they have to wear. And that's what we'll be talking to you about this week, is how you in your e-commerce business, and sort of using examples that me and Matt have used over the years of how you can actually replace yourself, not entirely from the business, and you wouldn't want to, for numerous reasons, but yeah, largely to step away from the things that you're no longer needed, or in some cases are actually the impediment in.
Yeah, that is a curious one. So this does, I think Dave kind of hit the nail on the head here, is that it does seem like being the holy grail of running a business but not being involved in it day to day. And that I know that for some of you may sound very strange, or like even at this alien concept. What do you mean? Why would you not want to be in your business? And that's the thing is that you can take this to different degrees. And this does, I'd also like to stress, this mastermind does build upon previous ones which we've done as well, like outsourcing, for example, and building your own team. They all go hand in hand with this topic. But the one thing to remember is that it can be achieved at different levels. It can, like, to complete removal from the business, to just making things a lot easier for day to day. Now, let's start with the most obvious thing, which is that it's called superhero syndrome. What was it? Chris Ducker coined that term in his book. And he's absolutely right, and I'm guilty of doing that. And superhero syndrome is this idea that you can do everything and nobody can do better than you. While the reality is that that's certainly not the case. And Matt's a little bit more mature now and appreciates that. And I hope that you genuinely take this to heart as well, is that I know that when I was in my 20s, I tried doing everything myself and found myself burnt out, waking up in a tent and thinking, screw it. And that's not somewhere where I want you to ever go. I also want to add that it is different degrees. Some of you may never want to actually leave your business and always want to be part of it, or feel, rightly so, I'm not disagreeing with you, that you should be part of the business day to day. But the thing is that the one thing which I've learned, and Dave has picked up over the last couple of years, is that it is very good to share roles or responsibilities within the business to other people. And the real primary reason for that is to just have some slack in the business, I think. If anything, if you're looking for a reason to get the first outsourced member of a team, I'm saying outsourcing, but it's not really outsourcing. You actually are building a team for you in your business. It just so happens they're in a different, generally speaking, they're in a different country. It's not hard, and it's a process which any of us can do. Surprisingly, is that we actually do turn out to be quite good managers, if that makes sense. I'm sure we've all had terrible bosses of one shape or form over the years, and if we think about our worst experiences and try and turn them into the best experiences and apply those to a team, you would be surprised of how well things will actually go. Coming back to my point, was that we're not suggesting that you should remove yourself from every single part of your business. And like Dave, there are parts of the business which you, in theory, should never take yourself away from, such as strategic approach, or the high level managerial things, or business level pieces, which generally should always be done by yourself or a trusted colleague. Is that the best way of framing that one, Dave?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's going to be some aspects of your business which are going to be slightly more confidential than others. the main one that comes in is largely going to be financially related. So whether that be handling the accounts, whether that be dealing with the money coming in and going out of the business, that is often information that you don't want getting out into the wider aspect of the business. You know, you think about a lot of big businesses, maybe businesses you've worked for in the past, you had no idea what your manager was getting paid. You didn't know how much the director was taking as his dividend, because that was none of your business ultimately. But you know, that's why you weren't doing the accounts, and therefore there would be someone, usually an external accountant, who would be, or someone within payroll in HR, who would be trusted with that role.
Yeah, can I just jump? Can I just
Yeah.
jump on that for just one moment? Is that typically speaking, an accountant to a business is typically a third party to the
Usually.
business, and they are a specialist role. And the thing is that if you have an accountant, well, actually, you do have a team. Inadvertently, you've created yourself a team, and I got rid of one valuable, but also one specialized area to your business. So, Dave, I like that example where you were going there with that you wouldn't necessarily see what the whole business is doing from an accounting point of view. But on the flip side, actually, an accountant or bookkeeper is one of your team. They may only be with you a day a week or a day a month or whatever they're with you for, but for all intents and purposes, they are part of your team, although a very specialized part. Sorry.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, I mean, that's one example that, you know, you wouldn't just get rid of willy-nilly, but like I said, often in most cases, either it's sometimes a family member. If you're a small startup, maybe the wife, the husband will look after the accounts. Or like I said, you'll get someone in externally to look after that, someone who is distant from the business. But then, you know, saying that, there may be other aspects of the business which, again, you implement as a safety net, so to speak. So if you're working in in quite a competitive environment, maybe one where you have you know, customer relationships, you have like B2B relationships, you may want to protect some of that business information on the premise that if that got leaked out to one of your competitors, would that give you a disadvantage? So again, it depends on what sort of business you run. If you're running an e-commerce business, that's not likely to be the case. But you have to be aware that there are going to be certain roles within the business which would be harder for you to get away from if you wanted to be a true business person. And again, this goes back to being self-aware and knowing what it is that you do best in the business. So if you are best at, you know, writing descriptions and, you know, taking photographing images, that's what you love doing, and that's what you find your passion is in your business, then maybe bringing in a COO or a CMO into your business to look after the growth of the business, that again is a high trusting role that you're basically going to trust a vice captain to sort of steer the ship, because you're not interested, or maybe that's not your skill set. But that's another way that you can get to remove yourself from the parts of the business that you perhaps don't want to do, or perhaps you just are aware aren't your forte.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And yeah, I think the point which you're trying to make here is that there are obvious parts within your business where you can build a team to help you to help basically replace yourself, some of the tasks which you're doing on a daily basis. And remember, there's pretty much everything which you are doing on a daily basis is a skill rather than a talent. Okay, is that I'm pretty sure the vast majority of the things which you are doing can be replicated by somebody else, or at least one person, probably multiple people to cover all the bases. And also the thing to remember is that if you have somebody who's doing a specific task full time, for example, customer service, is chances are they can provide and be more competent than what you are, because they are doing it full time and they're not just dipping in on their phone every 5 minutes, or trying to do something. You're trying to answer a message while you're trying to answer the phone, or you're speaking to a supplier, or you're working on another part of your business, or trying to pick, pack and dispatch, for example, and you're unable to give it the full attention, and that is exactly where someone else can. Irony is, sorry, just hit mute. And the irony is that person, believe it or not, is likely to be way better than you. And the thing is not, we're not saying from one moment just get somebody in random and just teach them to do whatever. We're with like no encouragement or tutoring or anything like that. We're actually, what we're saying here is that it is absolutely possible to replace you for most of the stuff which you do day to day, and think about what you do on a daily basis. And if you're unsure, if you are unsure what you're doing on a day-to-day basis, there's nothing wrong with taking a notepad around with you for the day, or just using your phone and Messenger, for example, and just leaving notes on what you're actually doing throughout the day. So it could start, for example, quickly checked emails, got the kids ready for school, took them to school, came back, sorted out the printer, printed out all the orders which needed to go out today, gave those to XYZ who works in your warehouse, then did customer support, then took a phone call from a supplier. That's the kind of thing which I'm like trying to document, and then go back and look at everything which is you've done during that day, and you just be brutal with what's been going on in that list. Now, taking the kids to school, you might actually enjoy taking the kids to school because you go and see some other parents and you get some adult time, rather than kids time. But answering the messages first thing in the morning, that would definitely be something which could be done by somebody else, the same as getting the orders ready to be print, packed and dispatched could also be done by somebody else. Maybe a conversation with a supplier is something which you're not happy to pass to a third party. Well, then heck, you keep that one for yourself. You take one for the team on that one, but everything else which you've had going on during the day, be like brutal with what's been going on, and think to yourself, can someone else do this? And remember, keep in the back of your mind, the chances are is that other person, once you train and you tutor them, they are going to be better than you long term, because they're not having to do a million different things. They're focusing upon that one or two tasks which you've been to set them, and that's going to be their daily job or tasks, is to complete those tasks. So customer, again, coming back to customer service, they're going to be able to respond to messages faster than you. They are going to be able to respond to messages as competent, if not more competently than you. Because again, let's be brutally honest, answering a message on a phone, going bash, its chances of spelling mistakes, etc., are high. And yeah, being able to get back to somebody in a very short period of time while they're still sat there at their computer is a massive advantage. And also, to be brutally honest, it's just really not the best use of your time being staring at the phone all the time. It's one thing, we've said this many times, it's one thing working in your business, doing something like pick, pack and dispatch, for example, rather than working on your business, which is then working out is, right, we're doing this on eBay, we've been doing this on Amazon, should I be doing that? Should we be working on a website? I need to be looking at Google AdWords and things like that. And that's time, effort and energy, which is going to be well spent by yourself. Everything else is better spent by somebody else. And remember, processes, mentoring, the tutoring of that new member of staff is absolutely key. We're not saying that just get someone random off the high street. We're actually do the right thing and teach them the right way, and show them what you want or what you're doing right now. But crucially is to listen to their feedback. Now, Dave, there's been a lot of us talking here about like the theory, the theory side. Can we get to the practical side and think about UE for a few moments?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, I think one thing that I would like to sort of touch on it is perhaps those people who are watching this and maybe they're new to their business, and they might be sat here going, well, why would you want to replace yourself in your business? I think that's a question which is worth looking at first before we then get into, you know, how we've done it with UE. But ultimately, I think from my personal opinion of why you would want to replace yourself in a business, I think one of the key ones is multiple revenue streams. And we actually have another webinar in a couple of weeks talking about that. But it's the old eggs in baskets analogy. The more eggs that you have and spread across more baskets, the more sort of, not only the more secure that you are financially, but also the more chances that you have of, again, making money. And some people would argue that you're going to see much more success if you double down on your one thing and try and make that as big as possible. People use Microsoft and Apple as examples of this. You know, they focus on doing one thing and doing one thing very, very well. But there's lots of other examples. I mean, Virgin, Richard Branson, he's had cola, radio stations, planes. He's had his fingers in so many different pies, trains. That ultimately, by diversifying your assets, so your interests into different things, is actually a safer way of running your business. And that's one aspect. That's one thing that sticks out in my mind. And again, if you look at what we've done with UnderstandingE, and in the past year and a half near me, we started up eSeller Cafe. There's no way we'd have been able to do eSeller Cafe if we were still so hands-on with UnderstandingE. In fact, that's the reason why we didn't do it sooner, is because we just didn't have the time.
It was one of the original ideas which we had, and it was almost like a shock to us when we were chatting with a third party, and they mentioned about what other ideas you had. And I mean, it wasn't called eSeller Cafe back then, but it was an idea which we had, and because we were free and available, not because we were free, we had spare time in our day, we were available to do it. And we're also very, very lucky with Richard, to put that into context as well. It always needed somebody who had a desire or a passion to create content very quickly. And things just slotted in very, very quickly. And again, eSeller Cafe is if you didn't know, is a e-commerce news site focused towards the US. And was it over a year old now, Dave?
It was a year in April, I think, when we first went live. So yeah, it's a year and a few months now, and growing from strength to strength. Really, we had a great June. July's looking good as well. So yeah, no, we're seeing great growth there. And again, that's just something which wouldn't have come about if we hadn't started putting the things in place to enable us to step away from UnderstandingE a little bit, and do the things that we need to do.
Yeah, it wouldn't even been a possibility. It would just been like an idea which we had a couple of years ago and never actually implemented, and now it's a year old. And it's out there, over a year old now. It's out there, and I know the stats in the background, and it is really doing really well. While other sites have actually dropped in traffic, this site has increased in traffic. It's really, really curious, to say the least. There's other dynamics to issue going on that one, but the point there is Dave's making is that would have never been a possibility for us if we were still trying to do everything which we were doing. Now, Dave, there is a comment which come in from Maria. Maria says, I recruited my neighbor and board-at-home mum, who is an ex-pharmacist. She is far better at attention to detail than me and is making massive progress with SEO after going to a Google garage. Result. Absolutely. Okay, let's the other brutal one, okay, is some people do have better attention spans, okay, than you. And the other one is that they may just have more enthusiasm than you when it comes to actually going to a Google garage event and mucking around with SEO and working on a site, whereas you just frankly may hate it. That's another bloody good reason to try and replace parts of yourself, because we've talked about customer service and other bits and bobs, but there are tasks within a business which you probably just don't want to do. Video editing was one for me. within UE, because it just took so long to do. And having a full-time editor now at our disposal to edit whatever we send him is just fantastic, absolutely fantastic. And the irony is that now he's able to create or edit the content which we send him much quicker than even if we sat here and did it ourselves, because it's what he does, if that makes sense. So, Dave, I think we've got the general consensus across. If we think about UE, I want to touch on UE, and then we're going to see if we can wrap up in the next 10 minutes or so.
Okay.
Just to try and keep this compressed, because I think the point is already been made. If we think about UE, for example, we have a full-time content editor where it would take, for every like half an hour video, it would take another like 3-4 times on top to get the editing done on it, especially if you include the audio needs to be tweaked and then putting it in the timeline and things like that. Video editing is a massive time sap. It's actually one of the reasons why we use live for these masterminds on YouTube, is because they require zero editing. We just need to be turned up with details in the background, which we're capable to do at our own leisure. And then after this live event, there's no editing required for us at all, which is why we like the live masterminds a lot. And plus there's an interaction with yourself as you're watching this. If you also think about UE, is that we have a full-time content creator. So Nettie, she has worked for us for quite a period of time now, to the point I'm not really sure, maybe 2 years, something like that.
It must be longer than that. Yeah, I think it's 2 years since we were in Manila. So yeah, it must be.
Absolutely. And that's ace. That I'll give a real good example, which is that, and again, I'm sure I could get somewhere near a level, but I don't want to be writing content every single day. Whereas Nettie absolutely loves it. She has a publishing background to her, and it's at a stage now that, what was it, yesterday? Dave was out of the office. I'd read something in the morning. And I'd ping Nettie this idea about email being 40 years old, and say, well, can you do this? And I gave her a quick, and she was like, yes, done. And she's done two different versions.
Yep, eSeller Cafe one is now live, and we got John Hayes to do a couple of quotes for us, and then the UE one will be out later this week, I believe. So yeah, 2 articles.
And that highlights the point here, is that the key part of that process was having the original idea. Actually writing it and then implementing it was actually best done by somebody else, which was Nettie, and it was great. And it was all done up within about 2 sentences on Skype, all done, like all the way through to I haven't seen it since. So it's absolutely brilliant. And then we think about Tina, for example, which is our general assistant, and she is just absolutely fantastic for lots of different reasons. She's more of an everything person, so she's able to create. She does all the artwork for us. She looks after emails, the dedicated emails, also our personal emails as well. And Tina, I didn't tell Dave this one this morning, but Tina's looking up the HK Vision security cameras, because I want to put CCT around the house, and I've given like the quote which I was given. But basically, I said this is the quote which I've been given. They are the 8 megapixel cameras, and there's 2 different versions. There's a 30 meters, there's a 50 meters. I think there might be another one. Have a look at the quote, see what you can find, and within UK sites, and see what kind of price you can get from me. And of course, any details or specifications, include them as links. And of course, then I've just left that with Tina to go and look at, and that saves me sat here for just dicking around trying to find different cameras and the different specifications. Well, I can just give it to Tina, and I can get a very, very good ballpark figure on what it's really going to cost me if I actually install it myself. And of course, at the end of that process, I am then going to make I will then make an informed decision. Is it worth me continuing and buying the kit directly myself and then installing it myself? Or is the quote which I've got actually not bad value in the scheme of things, because then I don't have to go and buy the kit, and then I don't have to be crawling through the roof when it's absolutely bloody hot here, and then sort out a load of annoying RJ45 plugs, when in reality, the bloke Andy who quoted could come and have it all done in like an afternoon. You know, it's that absolute decision which I need to know. What is the price difference between buying the kit directly? And Tina will be able to answer that for me. The other example is H, who is normally sat there during from 11 till half 2, or sorry, 11 till 1, whatever. She's here longer. Some days she's
don't even know what she wears.
Or 10 to 11, and then she's here for the scrum meeting, and she just sorts out the financial stuff. It's like refunds which need to be done, or anything money orientated other than paying UE staff. She sorts out for me. It's just absolutely fantastic, and to the point I didn't touch it. I can't remember. In fact, I do remember the last time I had a ticket from Widget Chimp from the other member of staff, which I got Ruel, was a technical issue which he got stuck on and actually forgot what the reason was. And it wasn't even, there was sweet FA I could do about it, because it was an issue with the eBay API. I've seen it before. Once I said, right, that's exactly what it is. Remember, we had this one about like a year ago. It'd been so long ago, but I remember doing the research on it, and it was just a dead end. It's just one of those circumstances. It was just something weird with the eBay API. It was just like, there's no other way. You're just going to have to tell the customer they need to wait a day or so, because it's a bug with the eBay API. We've seen it before, admittedly, once a year ago, but that's what it is. We can't do anything about it at all. So that was the last ticket I was personally involved in, and I genuinely can't remember the one before. So that is one of the beauties of having a team. And we're not suggesting necessarily suggesting that you replace everything which you do, but there are certain parts which, just to be brutally honest, somebody else can do way better than you. Okay, and I'm going to say, like Maria, for example, is that I'm pretty sure that there are parts which you may feel, because I know it's exactly the same for me as well, which you may feel that you're best at, when in reality they could perhaps be done by somebody else, potentially better than what you or I could do. That's the brutal reality. And talking about Maria, just saw Tink and Stink said, I bought some new photography software and equipment as Photoshop, and I were never going to be, and we were never going to be friends. My order processor has proved to be a fab photographer and loves getting more involved. Yeah, that's the irony, is that the more responsibility which you give somebody, generally the more responsive they are back to you, because you're handing over trust. You're basically saying, I trust you. And that's the thing about trust, is that some people think it's should be received, and actually when it comes to trust and loyalty, is that it needs to be given. It's something that has to start somewhere, and it has to start with you. So give trust. Remember that 99.9% of people are good people. I think it was one of the underlying factors for eBay and the feedback mechanism, which was going on there, is that most people are good. Okay, and that's the nice thing, is that most people you're ever going to meet, especially you're going to work with as well, are going to be great. You just need to make that first couple of steps, which is to say, I trust you, in short, and give it implied. And again, you can be limited in what you do. For example, like we always keep meaning to give Tina PayPal access, but we just give a limited PayPal access. So while she can access the account and maybe process refunds, is that she can't withdraw funds. For example, there are just sanity checks going on. If you've got a personal assistant, for example, instead of giving her your normal card details, then just get a cheap card, or just get a separate credit card, which has a fixed limit on it. So worst case, that she or he could go and blow 500 quid, and that would be the end of it. Not empty your entire bank account. So it is horses for courses. there are just common sense things which you would apply to. So, sorry, Dave, we've gone into some practical examples there within UE, and
I think as well, just to wrap up the sort of, again, the title of this is how to replace yourself with a phone these days. And a great example of this was yesterday. I was out of the office from like 7 until 10 at night. So I was out all day, and yet I could see the message come in on Skype, got that authorized, Nettie did that. I could check emails, anything that immediately needed action, I could forward on to someone who needed to do it. Nobody really missed me yesterday, being sat at a desk on a laptop all day, because I had a phone, and we've put the software and the processes in place to make sure that in the event that I'm not around, the whole world doesn't fall apart. And we have the processes and software in place that the things that I am needed for can get to me, and therefore can be actioned very quickly, rather than that email story having to wait until today, rather than some questions Richard had for me having to wait until today. They all got actioned within 5 minutes of asking.
Dave,
I was out of the office all day.
A very important point here is that the moment you pass off other tasks to someone else, the things which are important or urgent, and sometimes there is this grey line in which it takes time to work out what's important and also what's really urgent. In there is that thing is that if you have more time available to you, is that if something does go wrong or pitong within the business, is that it will reach you faster. The stuff which you need to know about or need to be involved in, you will get to them much more quickly than ever before, because you're not dealing with all the other chaff which is not necessarily the best use of your time. Is probably the best term.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, just to quantify that for anyone, you know, if you were managing your own emails and you've got that one important email stuck in an unread list of 50, it's going to take you a long time to find it. Because we have Tina that goes in and goes through all the crap. As soon as that important one comes in, she checks and goes, oh, that's an important one. We find out about it that much quicker.
Yeah, I just put Richard's comment in the live chat, and I was sending them from a plane, so we ran part of the totally from home yesterday.
Yeah,
there you go. There's the reality for it. So to quickly summarize, okay, replacing yourself is that we're not saying replace everything which you do. We're just politely saying that there's quite a lot of what you do on a daily basis which could be done by somebody else, probably better than what you can be doing it. And I think that's the biggest realization as a business owner, is that actually I'm crap at doing this and that, probably that, and I really should get rid of that as well. And that, I think that's when you hit a certain maturity as a business owner, you go, well, actually I'm not very good at this, and you make the decision whether you're going to soldier on and try and learn yourself, or you make the decision to hire in, whether that be short term through a contractor, or full time through a member of by adding a member of staff to your team. So yeah, the one caveat is strategic things. You need to be keeping that to yourself. There are limits to what can be outsourced, for want of a better term, within your business. Dave mentioned CMO, COO, and things like that. But I would say that there are limits to what can be outsourced within your business, and don't go too high in it to change the strategic direction of what your business is doing, unless that person has credentials to say that they are fully qualified to be doing that. And again, obviously, we live in a worldwide market or global employment pool, which you have available to you. So, Dave, it is time for us to wrap up. I think we've covered everything which we wanted to cover today.
Yeah, I think so. I think we hit the nail on the head and talked about the hows and the whys and covered everything, and with some live examples too.
Brilliant. So on that note, from myself, Matt.
And from me, Dave, we will see you next week. What's the subject, Matt, for next week? You told me about an hour ago.
I told you again. I've been too focused on this one. Oh, what could you do with 1 hour a day?
That's the one.
I love that one. I remember doing that one about 2 years ago.
Yeah, it was a while ago.
You would be very impressed in what you can do with just 1 extra hour a day. And you would be surprised, to say the least. So anyway, that is next week's episode. We will be here live, same time, same place next week. So from myself, Matt.
And from me, Dave.
Cheerios.
See you then, guys. Have a great week.
Bye-bye.